welcome to the living room. We are going to be having a conversation today all about parenting. Who's excited? Not many people from the sounds of it. No, we've been talking a little bit about family. This is a one-off this week. Do you know what, to me anyway, and I think is so important, if you're in here and you're a follower of Christ, we want to grow in all things, in all areas of life. We're never going to put anyone on a stage who is perfect or an expert, but there is an opportune moment to learn something. And I don't know about you, but I'm a parent. I want to do the best I can with anything that God gives me, whether that's work or it's children or something that he puts in my hands. And so we're going to have a conversation with three amazing people from Way who are going to join me in a minute. But can I just ask, wherever this finds you today and wherever you're at, just lean in at this point. We're trusting actually that God speaks to us. He speaks to us anyway, but when we lean in, sometimes we can just hear him a bit better. Is that all right? Yeah, brilliant. So if you can just welcome to the stage Graham, Cathy, and Hannah. They're going to come sit down. Thank you. Some of you may be familiar with these three faces. Some of you won't be. I am going to get them to just give a headline on themselves, if that's okay, including probably children and their ages and things. What we've tried to do is include people who have got children of different ages. Parenting looks different at different stages of life. So I'll hand it over to Cathy first.
Oh, sorry. Morning, everybody. So I'm Cathy. I've been coming to Way for about 15 years or so. I'm a mum of three adults. They're all in the 30s. No challenge at all, obviously. And I've got 6 grandchildren as well.
Hey.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I guess I've got a lot of experience. Whether I'm right with it all the time, I don't know, but that's my background.
Morning, everybody. My name is Graham. I am married to the wonderful and beautiful Catherine. We have been married for 26 years. We have 3 children, Sam, who's 24, Ben, who's 21, and Millie, who's 12. So I've been coming to Way Church pretty much all my life. My mum brought me with my dad, obviously, as in a pram, and here I am all those years later.
Very good. Hi, I'm Hannah. I come to Way. I'm married to Ben, and we have 2 children that are 9 and 7.
Yeah, good.
That's me.
I think just to preface this conversation, we are all followers of Jesus, right? So our intention, we can talk, you guys can tell me a bit. My intention for my children, I've got 2 young children as well, is that they would come to know God for themselves, right? Not that I have all the control over that, but I want to raise them in such a way that shows God is the one, right? He's the one to follow. You can make whatever decision you want in your life, but actually following Jesus is the best decision you can make. And so all of our conversation today is from that point of view. Again, not as experts, not as people who get it right all the time, but some people who have a little bit of experience like me and Han, and then a lot of experience like Graham and Cathy, of just what we've learned, what's gone right, what's gone wrong, but in the middle of it, how we trust God through every stage of parenting. So I guess my first question, because I think there's a lot of, in the age of information, there's a lot of information and not a lot of wisdom. What is some kind of advice that you've been given that you're just like, yeah, it just didn't work for my parenting or my kids? And I ask that to make the point that there's a lot of stuff out there. It doesn't mean just because someone who speaks really well or sounds like they've got it all together says it, that it will be right. So have you had any experience of that?
Yeah, probably quite a few practical things, but actually the one that I thought about when I read the message was, people told me like, right, so this is going to expose me as a parent. I'm just going to expose myself straight away. That they said, like, when you have children, like everything you do is all about the children. Your life just becomes about those kids. And do you know what? Everything I do and the decisions I make are influenced by the fact that I have children. So I do think, is this going to be helpful? Is this not going to be helpful? But actually what I found is when I became a parent, like all these things that I actually wanted to do that I'd never done before for myself. I had always wanted to be a mum. Like if you said to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I probably said a fashion designer for a bit, but actually the thing that I knew was a mum. Like I knew that's what I wanted to be. And then, so then when I became one, I was like, okay, like I'm a mum now. What am I going to do? What am I? Do you know, like who am I? And so as much as everything is influenced by the fact that I have children, actually I feel like I understand so much more of myself. I do so many more things that are just literally for me, not actually about the kids. So yeah.
Do you feel like that's helped you to become a better parent to your children?
Yeah. But also I think it's just helped me to become a better me. I don't know. I feel like I understand myself better now than I think I did before I had children, because I have branched out to think like, okay, now I'm a mom, who also am I? I don't know. Yeah. That's what I'm.
Well, as a father, you know, I passed my driving test at 17 and I got a license to say I could drive. I got some exams to say I could read and write. But as a dad, when you get a baby, you don't really know what you're doing. And I'm really good at making it up as I go along. And so fatherhood for me was just what I'd seen from my own father, who was a really, really good father, and because I had fantastic parents. So I didn't have anybody tell me what was good or bad. I'd been brought up in this house. You saw good and not so good ways of dealing with my children. And so I tried to adopt that. So I didn't have any sort of great ideas I just made it up as I went along because I knew I wasn't qualified to do this job that I was being asked to do.
Yeah, good. And I'll just say, so I'm retired now, but I'm a midwife that's been my professional career, and I've been a midwife for 7 years before I had my first child. So everybody assumed that I would absolutely know what to do. But whilst I did practically, certainly for a newborn and a tiny baby point of view, but then your emotions kick in when you're a parent, so they make things very different. So when my midwife was coming to care for me, even though I knew what to expect, I had a million questions for them because I wasn't sure that I was doing it right. So it really taught me about that when I had my own children, because of how the caring and responsibility, I guess. The responsibility of having children came in, and all my practical background sort of went out of the window.
Good. You can keep all of that, Cathy. Cathy, I wanted to ask you, because you've got 3 adult children and grandchildren. Obviously, how old's your eldest?
38.
38.
I won't tell you which one.
Yeah. Yeah, you might get in trouble. Yeah. So 38 years of parenting, and 3 children and now lots of grandchildren. You've obviously had to evolve as a parent. So like being a parent to children who are under 10 is one thing. It's different again in the teenage years. And even though obviously as an adult they're released, they make their own decisions and maybe start their own families or live their own lives. How have you had to evolve as a mother? Because definitely, I mean, maybe it's just me, guys. I feel like adult children still need their parents from time to time, but it's just different. What's that journey been like for you?
I think it's exactly that, Rach. And I think, whatever age and stage you're at in life, you value your parents, maybe. I know that's not always the case. That's certainly been the case in my own life. And, now our sort of channels of communication are different. They certainly don't need parental permission to do things, honestly. They do ask my advice about things. It's very different things, obviously, than when they were younger. So, for example, it might be job security, finance, relationships, friendships. It's different things. I'm glad that they ask me advice. They don't always do. I try and not jump in and give advice when they've not asked me for it. Sometimes I want to, but they are their own adult person.
How do you decide, though?
Yeah, I guess that's difficult because I could give some examples, which of course I won't, of things that I'm not happy about with my children, or the relationships, or the decisions. But they are just like I've done and like we all need to do. You make your own decisions and you learn from the paths that you've taken, I guess. They will ask my advice about things, and if they do, I'm thankful for that, and I'll give them the advice I can. I may give them some examples of my own life experiences. But yeah, I guess the nurturing thing still stands. The nurturing that I felt that they were when they were babies still stands now that I'm a parent of 30-odd-year-olds, even though they think I'm very old. One of my sons texted me this week and just put old in the text, so thanks for that. Because I was excited about getting on a train to Preston on time. So anyway, that's beside the point. But I guess what they need to know is, even though I might not say it like this, they need to know that I love them, and I see them, and I'm there for them, I guess. There's something about that. And, you know, this is what we feel from God, in that unconditional love that we feel from God because he's our Father. I'm the parental mum, and that's what I want them to always see in me, that whatever happens, I'm there for them. I might not like it, and there's lots of times I don't, or I don't agree with them. We do have disagreements, clearly, with different people. But just so that they know that I've got them, and I'm there for, you know, still guidance and shaping them if they want that to happen.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Han, I think I want, I'm going to ask you something next. So you're a millennial, yes? As am I.
Just.
As
I'm
am
on
I.
like the cusp of, no, I'm not.
The Gen Zs will say that we're giving ourselves away in a few ways today. But I think something that I've observed, and I've observed it in myself as well, amongst sometimes Gen X, which is the generation before us, and millennial parents, there's a lot of fear parenting. What I mean by that is we're so much more aware now of our emotions, and even if we've had good experience of parenting, which not everybody has, we fear basically messing our kids up in some way. So we do everything to try and get every single thing right. Whilst I think there's an amazing side of that, of being mindful and being responsible and doing our best, I think we can definitely make decisions from fear and lead our kids from fear if we're not careful. First of all, do you find that? If you don't, I'll speak for a bit, because I do. And then second of all, how do you manage it?
Yeah, I do find that. That is probably like, if I was thinking about my biggest fears, that's probably one of them. Like, put me in a room of snakes, sure, but then like, I don't want to mess my kids up. So I am actually really hyper aware of that. And so like I said, I've got a 9 is my eldest now. So I've been parenting for 9 years, nowhere near as long as a lot of people in here, but actually got 9 years under my belt, and you know, she's doing all right. And so over that time, I have had to become more aware of when I'm parenting from a stance of fear, and actually actively change it to parenting from a stance of faith. And that is something that I actively do. I mean, there's just, even I was born in 1990, so I grew up in primary school through the 90s, and then early noughties I was at high school. So things had already changed quite a lot from when my parents were at high school then. But actually, like, it was like just on the cusp of like having smartphones and stuff. I think I probably only had a mobile phone like year 9 or something. And we only just got computers. I remember we used to, you know, like, we were still in that era. If you don't know what that is, you're too young.
She's referring to the dial-up tone.
Yeah.
Some people are just looking at me blankly like, what's the dial-up tone?
Whereas now, literally, like, my kids have had iPads, don't judge me, for years. So they love YouTube, you know, and they know the way around an iPad, they know the way around a phone. And that is going to continue. I know that. So actually, that does bring a lot of fear to my soul. You know, what are they being exposed to that I wasn't exposed to? Even just like the generation that they're in is so different than even the one I was in. And so that for me can induce a lot of fear. But I do have to decide, okay, God, I know that you have my children. This is what like the narrative I have to tell myself. God, I know that you have my children. So I can parent from this stance of being fearful of they're going to be riddled with anxiety, or, you know, they're going to have so many identity issues, or, you know, as soon as they get a smartphone, like it's going to be the end of the world because they're going to access this and this. I could easily fear from that point, but I have to actively be like, okay, God, I'm going to do this out of faith. And I know that to allow my children to enjoy the things that other people enjoy and to be part of the world, but to do that from a place of faith. God, I know that the things I'm instilling in them is going to work. God, I know that you see them. God, I know that you hold their future. Instead of like, oh no, I'm going to have to wrap them in cotton wool. Because guess what? They're going to, even if I did that, they're going to be an adult at some point and they're going to have to go. So then I can't do that forever. And actually, I don't think that's a good way to parent. Sorry, I don't. I think that we should be saying, okay, God, I'm not going to parent from this place of being terrified about what my kids are going to end up like or what's going to happen to them or what they're going to say. But actually from, God, I know you've got this. Help me to help them. And, you know, someone very wise says to me all the time, you are going to mess your kids up, right? I don't like it when he says that to me because in our one-to-ones, if you hear, you're listening, he'll say, you know, at the end of the day, you can do all these things. Your kids are going to have an issue with something you've done. You can do the best. You can do everything you think is right. They are going to have some hang-ups just like you do with your parents. And so I want to do the best to parent from faith and actually have those open conversations that we can try and talk through things. And yeah, does that answer it? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, if you don't, I encourage you to rely on the grace of God when it comes to parenting. I think with all the wisdom in the world, and even if you've had really great examples or you've got good role models around you, if you're a parent, you are your children's parent for a reason, right? That should be something that encourages you that actually you've got the grace from God to be able to lead them, to guide them, to invest into them, to handle their unique personality. Often I look at my kids and I'm like, where did these two come from? Sometimes I'm blaming like my other half, my dad's side of the family. I'm blaming my sisters, like, they're like this because of you. I'm like, what is going on with these two? And then I feel like God reminded me, no, they're yours. And I gave them to you and you've got the grace to lead them. But there's so much trusting in God, prayer, like catching myself being fearful and trying to parent from a perspective of faith and freedom, not trying to hold them in and hold them back from things. Graham, you've got 3, well, they're not all grown up, they're still your children, but grown-up children now. And obviously you've had 2 boys who are now come through the teenage years. I've not had teenagers yet, but I believe I've been one. And I believe they can be difficult or challenging years sometimes. I feel like you're going to say they're not, but that's fine. What are some of the key practices that you kind of had in place with your boys going through the teenage years that you're glad you had?
Okay, so what did Kath and I do? So I was conscious that, again, we didn't have computers when I went to school. There was one in one room, and we used to go and look at it and wonder what you did with it. So from a man's perspective with boys, men are, I suppose, not as open as maybe mums are with their daughters. So I sort of, or Cathy and I took the sort of, that if my boys were going to hear it, they were going to hear it from me. And so my table at home is a table where you can come and have your tea round and we'll have the conversations. So with my boys, as they were going through teenage years, yeah, they had a smartphone and they're probably looking at things and watching things they shouldn't have been. And so I had to guide them in sort of what was good and what wasn't good, and what you're opening yourselves up to and looking at maybe not really what you should be. And so if they were going to hear it, they were going to hear it from me. And at which point then, you know, in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, it says, teach your children the ways of the Lord, and they will not, in their old age, wander from that. Yeah. And so us as parents, we taught and we have taught our children because we come from a faith aspect. The world itself will tell you you can go and do whatever you want to because that's just how it is. However, what we tried to do, and as they've got older, so Sam's 24 and Ben's 21 and Millie's 12. So as the boys got older, it was, you lose the fact that you're the one who's telling them what they can and can't do, because now they've got choice. And so from telling them what they can and can't do to now discussing what is wise and unwise is how the conversation then changes. And by giving them the actual ability to make choices for themselves. So when they came to me at 18, Sam, my boys don't currently come to church, and he says, "It's not for me, this, Dad." And I said, "Okay, right." It wasn't I felt a failure as a father. It was I felt that I'd equipped my children enough that even now at 24 years old, when they go for a job interview, my son comes to me and says, "Dad, can we pray about this?" So as he learned the ways of the Lord in his younger years, even at this point now, he's chose, or they both chose, not to attend, but they still have a faith. They still have God in their lives, and at any point, because they were taught as a young age through the house, through Sunday school, there was some non-negotiables that I discussed with them, which were, if you're not doing this on a Sunday, you're going to go to the youth group on a Friday. Both of them were very, very good sports people. And as they got better during their sports, obviously teams came and asked them. They went up for trials with lots of clubs, etc. So that was a non-negotiable in that. So as parents, Cathy and I decided what they could do. So we had a disciplined household. When you have discipline, and you rule from a discipline, they know what's right and wrong. Discipline and punishment are two total different things. And as faith and believers and walking in the way, we walk from discipline. We don't walk. God doesn't look at us in the fact that he wants to punish us. He wants to guide us to make good decisions for our lives. He wants to guide us so that people see who we are. Not that we're perfect. I'm far from perfect. Please don't think I'm a failed parent in many senses. However, the grace that my children give me is the grace that God shows me also. And so as I've got used to now, they've both got girlfriends. Their girlfriends come to our house. There's certain things that probably when I was growing up weren't allowed that I now allow. Now, that's my wisdom for a generation which is growing up in a completely different era than I grew up in. And so by adapting, my parent, doesn't mean I'm anything different, but I'm just adapting with the changes. And one of the things I did do with my children, or my boys in particular, I sat them down and I said, "Listen, I don't know what is going on at the moment. You're asking me all these questions and I've not got the answers. I'm not some perfect parent. So give me a bit of grace, will you?" Now, obviously, I know that they know everything anyway. But we haven't got all the answers. However, God does. And if we bring our children up in the principles of what you have as people and what you're reading in the scripture and what God's saying to you, if you then mirror that and influence your children as they grow up through all, because my boys are my boys for life. Yeah? So the 24 and the 21. Irrespective where your children are today in their own lives, is because I've empowered them to make the choices for themselves. And they're also going to be empowered to make the choice for themselves, whether they follow Jesus Christ. Might not be following him now. However, when I'm 60 years old, in 30 years, that I will be still influencing them, and I'll be influencing my grandchildren then as well for Jesus Christ. And that's all I can do is influence them, give them the keys, give them the tools to make the decisions, and the decisions they make, hopefully, because they've been brought up in a Christian home, will be based on Christian values.
Really good. Thanks, Graham. Cathy, I'm asking, it's quite a deep question. You choose how vulnerable you want to be. What's something that maybe is a challenge to you, even at your stage of parenting now, that you're finding that you need to trust God with?
So the ages that my children are now, Mum, what have you said that for? But what I'm saying is it's real life, right? So their view of the world, and they are parents themselves, all three of them. They're all in relationships. You know, that they have their own issues like we all have. And sometimes by their words or their actions, what they do or they don't do, they hurt me emotionally. And I'm sure you've all felt that at all stages with your kids, but I think it's different when they're adult kids. I don't believe that they've done it intentionally. I don't think we've not got that sort of relationship, but nevertheless I've been hurt. And sometimes when you're hurt, you have to just take a while to let the sting go down before you say anything or do anything. Again, there's grace in that. However, I believe, and this is what I've done with that, is taking some time and also said, God, what are you teaching me through this? Is it patience? Is it resilience? What is it? I've done, because I've got examples of that happening, is I've taken some time, and then when I feel able, I've revisited that and said, what you said to me then really hurt me. I don't know if you know that it did, but it did. I'm sure you didn't mean to, but you did, and this is why it did. And that, you know, you need to know that. And also, the reason that I'm speaking to you now is so that we can have that communication and collaboration about how we can restore that. And actually what I'm saying is the strength in that, the strength in me as your mum saying what you just said did cause me some emotional pain. And, you know, we're both going to learn from that, because neither of us wants it to happen again. I'm not saying it won't, but actually it's truth. It's truth that some things that you've chosen to do or say have actually hurt me. And I ask for God's wisdom and help with dealing with that. And I'm not saying that my way is the perfect way. I'm saying it's a way that I'm managing it.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. Thanks for your openness as well on that. Lastly, I would just like to know from each of you if there's any piece of wisdom you could give regarding parenting and faith, anything, what would it be?
So I'll just start with that, just give you a quick one. So I think as a parent, you need to remember that and the children need to know this, that you're the parent and you're not the best mate. I'm not saying you can't be friendly. I'm not saying you can't have a beautiful relationship. But I think as a parent, you set boundaries around, and it's because you're a responsible parent, and that even whatever age you are at, your parent will say that I don't think you got that right, or whatever that might be. I hope I'm not giving the thing of that I've got a terrible relationship with my 3 children, because I haven't. But what I'm saying is there's a difference between you're my best mate. I think we need to not blur the boundaries of what a parent responsibility is, because it's a really privileged position to be a parent, and that's the reason that I'm saying that. So I take that responsibility very seriously.
Yeah.
So I'll go with teenagers. With teenagers, you've got to work out what your non-negotiables are there and then, so they know where they stand, because my boys just would push me, they push the mother even further. And literally then remember that they're a gift from God, and that I'm their guide, and I'm their shepherd, and I'm their influencer. And that.
I've got 2, but they're quick. My first one is definitely apologise. I've got young kids, that's why I apologise constantly if I do something wrong. If I shout at them, or if I do something I know is wrong, I will be like, I'm so sorry. Even though it might take me a minute, I'm so sorry. Mummy shouldn't have said that. Mummy shouldn't have behaved that way. You know that Mummy's also not perfect. And my kids know that. They're like, we know. I'm like, okay, thank you. And then the other thing is, I love so much routine. My kids, since birth, they've been like routine focused so bad. And it was Rach, actually, I feel like challenged me a couple of years ago and was like, sometimes adventure and experience is worth a break in routine, because I would have them home for a certain time because I was so worried about how are they going to behave the next day. Like, I was quite regimented. Now, I'm still routine focused, guys, but I will break routine for something that I know is worth it. For example, this is just a very recent one. Good Friday feast that we had here. My kids go to bed at 7 o'clock. It started at 6. They weren't, and then I knew that we were tidying up at the end. We were going to be there till late. My son is actually terrified of staying up past his bedtime. He also loves routine. It was his birthday the other day and he asked to go to bed before everyone else had left the party. That's how much he loves it. But I explained to them before, we're going here, we're going to be up way past your bedtime. It's okay because we're not doing anything tomorrow, but this is really important because we're going to have so much fun. All our friends and family are here and it's going to be great. They loved it and it was worth it. So yeah, sometimes it's worth breaking routine if you're very routine focused to embrace some adventure. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's been so helpful. Personally, I hope it's been helpful to everyone in here.